Paraeducators are staff members or individuals who spend a lot of time working with students with disabilities and other needs. These individuals require consideration by the professionals that are responsible for working with them and directing the activities on a day to day basis. Our Dean of Students and all of the special education teachers really work hard to plan for the needs of each of the students. Our counselors also get involved in that process. Paraeducators provide direct or indirect instructional services to students who are supervised by licensed professionals who are responsible for student outcomes. Paraprofessionals can provide interventions. They can also provide RTI or response to intervention. I place my students in programs they need to be placed in. So I have paras that read with them. I have them read them test. I have them practice fluency with them, read questions. I have them give them choices or minimize options. Sometimes we have to train our paraprofessionals on the strategies to use with them, the proper accommodations and modifications to use, the proper SDI. Federal laws have established some parameters. Schools that receive Title I funds must receive appropriate preparation, an associate degree, or the equivalent training. There are assessments that demonstrate their skills for assisting in reading, writing, and math. There are many two-year colleges that paraprofessionals can go to take this test. The education that they receive demonstrates to schools that they're knowledgeable for the job that they are giving. So IDEA states that paraprofessionals must be able to work with individuals with disabilities. We can't just hire anybody anymore. And the number of paraeducators in today's schools have grown. This is because of a number of reasons. First of all, they've grown because we have students working out in the workforce, and that requires job coaches. We have a teacher shortage, and so this allows us to place students within the gen ed setting. Also, we have students that have ELL services, and so these individuals can help them with the language barriers. Paraeducator roles and responsibilities. Paraeducators provide general support to teachers because of the number of students in a class, the need for language support, or the implementation of supplemental instructional programs. Some paras are assigned as one-on-one assistants for students with whose disabilities present extra needs, but they can be divided into those that directly relate to instruction and those that are non-instructional. I truly try to have my paras work on the instructional task first rather than the non-instructional. I prefer that they, work with students first. The most common tasks paraprofessionals relate to is instruction, preparation prior to instruction, and follow-up instruction. If paras complete preparation prior to instruction or follow-up to instruction, it's things that I have to provide them. It cannot be things that they do on their own. Many times my paras will create Quizlets, and so I provide them with the vocabulary words and the vocabulary. Or maybe they will create a test prep. Again, I've provided them the questions and the answers. And post instruction, they may be correcting things. I have provided them an answer key. Instructional delivery. Provide specific interventions provided by the general education or special education teacher. Review instruction to ensure understanding. Lead students in completing assignments. Read assessments to students. Help students find resources. Help students organize materials. Facilitate student relationships. This is a lot of times through social stories. Help implement aligned curriculum. And observe and record student behaviors. Many of these things here I would model first so that my students have the proper understanding. Paras are very valuable in the classroom. It is extremely important to let paras know how valuable they are to you and how much you appreciate them through communication and the appropriateness of tasks. As you get to know your paraprofessionals, you will know who is more successful at certain tasks. Paras can create materials, create social stories, even though there are certain things that I prefer to do, facilitate participation in school activities, grade work with a key, prepare routine correspondence with a parent. Um, when I taught kindergarten and preschool, many times my paras would do this. I would read it and I would sign it so that my parents would know that I was involved and that they had correspondence with me. When paraeducators receive specific training on interventions, students benefit the most. Non-instructional responsibilities. Instruction is the primary responsibility, but often support for students, clerical work, or other activities that support students in an indirect way are planned for paraprofessionals. Sometimes when we have professional development days or if students leave early, this is time when they can do that. Support for students. Provide for their personal care, feeding a student, moving a student from place to place, catheterization, changing diapers, assisting a student to use the bathroom. Those are all things that can be trained from a school nurse. Also, remember, don't have a para complete those tasks unless that is something that you would do yourself. I would never have a paraprofessional complete a task that I would not do myself as a teacher. Paras may assist teachers in updating records, updating progress notes regarding student learning, or enter data on students' behavior intervention plans. Those are tasks that I would typically do myself, but those are things that they can do with proper guidance. Learning is assisted when students can interact with adults who understand their language. Many times we have paraprofessionals that can speak the same language as our students. Paras can serve as a liaison between students and teachers. So this is a good time to pause the video and talk about your feelings about a para coming into your classroom, having non-instructional interactions, about their language, maybe the knowledge and instruction. Other non-instruction responsibilities. Paraprofessionals also function as members of the instructional team. Some paraprofessionals may provide translation, phone calls, meetings, IEPs. This creates a comfort level for families. It truly is very beneficial. Ethical considerations. They provide instructional support to instruction. The teacher is accountable for the outcomes of the interventions they are provided in the classroom. Paras can provide appropriate instructional support, but not new instruction. I always tell my paras if they see parents within the community, maybe at the grocery store, and they have questions, always relate it back to me. I always say, just ask Mrs. Carey, because I don't want them to become in a tight spot with ethics. Paraprofessionals cannot write IEP goals. I do ask for their input as they work with my students a lot. Interpret data to plan instruction, make decisions about instruction, behavior, or other interventions, decide programming, design and deliver core instruction without teacher supervision, make other critical decisions concerning student education or safety, bear sole responsibility for part of a student's education. Some teachers ask paraeducators to record in a notebook, and I discussed this a little bit ago, or to call parents. Some paras text parents. I do not have my paraprofessionals do that because I don't want them to be in an uncomfortable situation. Always have the teacher contact the parent if possible. Parents and families are entitled to understand the qualifications of the individual delivering services and the scope of that person's responsibilities. Paras should be taught the goals of their work with students, and the goal is for them to gain independence. I always tell my paraprofessionals not to hover over a student. We want them to gradually move away from students. Students should learn to interact with their classmates and to seek assistance from the paraprofessionals. My students many times work with cups. So green means that they're working good. Yellow means that they're kind of starting to struggle, and red, they need help. I want them to be able to ask for assistance rather than having a paraprofessional always asking them if they need help. As a special education teacher, I a lot of times have to guide my paras what to do. I have to ask paras to be more positive with the language that they use. But I also have to ask them to pick their battles, and I have to pick my battles also. It's important to teach paraeducators to perform expected duties, plan with paraeducators, effectively assign specific responsibilities to paraeducators, communicate with them, and supervise these personnel. Federal law states that paras need to be prepared for their state and school district. Some school districts offer preparation. They have a lot of classes that they can take. There's autism training. It's a phenomenal training. Some of my paraprofessionals struggle with computers. I teach using Canvas, so I will work with them on that. Some paraprofessionals need to work under the direction of a specific special education teacher. I have two under me. The next chain is our dean of students, and then the principal. So the biggest dilemma is our planning time. Every Monday morning, I meet with my paraprofessionals and we discuss what's on for the week ahead. And then we also meet to discuss if there's any issues coming up. And that really helps. This would be a good time to pause the video to see if there's any schools that do things differently. Assigning responsibilities to paraeducators. It is the general educator or special education teacher's job to assign them specific tasks or responsibilities. Paras may get placed in the general education setting to support students. Students may need behavior support in the general education setting. They will need training on the plans that they have. Paras can provide remedial reading when they have received the training, review skills with students, and accompany students to related classes that they may have. As their teacher, it's our job to monitor paraeducators' work to ensure their time is well used so that students' needs are met. Now is a good time to talk. What are some strategies you find effective working with paraeducators? To communicate with them, use effective and efficient communication strategies to communicate and monitor their work and their work of student progress. An initial form of communication would be job description. I hand this out at the beginning of the year. I ask all of the teachers that they work with, what are their expectations, what they would like them to do. And then our dean of students also has things and expectations, when to clock in, duties, steps to take if there's a problem. It's our duty to supervise the work they do with students. Principals are their evaluators, and then I also have to fill out an evaluation form. As an educator, it is my job to monitor the tasks that are assigned to paraprofessionals, provide feedback to paras, and provide strategies, model effective ways to interact with students and instructional techniques, problem solve in regards to disagreements that paraeducator roles in general education and or special education. Sometimes I feel like I get put in the middle, and remember, it is important to problem solve that. Ensure paras follow school policies. Even when monitored, this doesn't always happen, and it does require documentation. Unfortunately, I have had to let some paras go. Ensure paras follow code of ethics and confidentiality. This has gotten broken, and you have to get administration involved. Support paras by answering questions regarding students' classroom practices, strategies, legal issues, and topics. Publicly acknowledge them. I like to give paras thank yous in front of my students. They need the recognition. Bring issues to the attention of administration that haven't been handled. Teachers are ultimately accountable for students' education. Consider para input when planning and making decisions based on their input. My paraprofessionals have their own reading groups, but when I do this, I have to write the entire lesson out. I have to include think alouds. I have to include assessments, everything. It has to come from me. And I have to give them plenty of time to go over it ahead of time. Address all small conflicts right away so these don't become serious conflicts. And then this may be one of the most complex relationships you will ever have in your teaching career, but it could be one of the most valuable relationships that you ever have. It's important to know and understand the difference in status between these individuals. Cherish all of the things that they can do and help you with, because they can really make a difference in your day and the lives of those students that you have in your classroom.